Indian news ma wakɔ aba assign de ba wɔn kasa fidie so bio. Na maka trust before anything else na just our share na ebiem nso kwa na wo subscribe to your channel no. What's the political news there? Never governance. Be catch you sɛ pan yɛ put form a yɛte. Na pan yɛ to form a yɛte deɛ a ɛneɛ na nsɛm foforɔ bi nso asan asi. Benim sɛ wɔde yɛ nsɛm a de bɛn nyinaa no yɛ na yɛ wɔ tɛ na yɛ ahɔhɔ na yɛ wɔ fɛ nso so. Nti no nsɛm foforɔ bi asi a Indian news yɛn nso so pan yɛ tɔɔ fo mi baabi yɛ ti nyinaa akyi no yɛn nsa atumi aka bi na yɛaso nso atumi ate saa nsɛm bi. Yɛntie nsɛm mmra sisi a na mpanimfoɔ mpo sɛ kakum no yɛgye no kɔkɔɔ anum. Deɛ ba before that no subscribe to your channel no. Bɛka all other news ɛfa politics wɔn de deɛ wɔpɛ sɛ wɔteɛ no ɛho. Etie ba ebi baabi a susu nso pɛ so wɔde bɔde wɔn fa. Na deɛ asie biara no nso fa comment nso to aseɛ na yɛnkenkan mfama wo deɛ ɛhwɛ de nneɛma ɛkɔ. Yɛntie nsɛm mmra sisi a wotie no fa comment to aseɛ ba yɛmfa nkyerɛmu no nso ntoa so. Yɛntie mmra.
When I was joining the BNI, we were over 4,000 that started the process. It took about 3 years for background checks, and I think about 4 of us were selected and we worked extensively. For some of them who joined the National Security Secretariat or the Security Intelligence Community, we don't know whether they have done background checks on them or they have been vetted or it's politics who put them there. That's number one. Number two, when we swear the oath, we promise ourselves and pledge that we will keep the oath and we will live by the terms of the oath. So within the security intelligence sector, particularly where some of us work, it's a secret society. What goes on there stays there. And there are ramifications for opening your mouth wide on any day at any point in time. I don't know of some other people which oath they swear and whether they promise to keep those oaths or not. Number three, when you look at the first spreadsheet he threw out there, there's nothing like classification with that particular spreadsheet and the descriptions on it. The descriptions on the spreadsheet do not even qualify to be called a confidential document. It seems more like an operational document. And to that regard, it doesn't shake up any national security interest. So these are the core issues to answer your question directly. Within the workings of the BNI or within the workings of the security intelligence community all over the world, there are some information they classify them as classified. Then there are some other information they classify them as confidential. And there are some other information they classify them as operational. Then we have underlying principles that governs how these 3 categories of information are transmitted or transported or transferred from one person to another or from one location to another. There's what we call the need to share. And at the point of the need to share, there's another subtitle we call the need to know. So you share with those who need to know at what particular time and what type of information. So information classified as confidential goes to you share with category of people who must be shared to. And those that goes to classify, you still share with those who must be shared to. So within the BNI with various departments, if information is for confidential and it's not supposed to be shared with Department B and you share with them, then you have breached what we call the need to know. But having dealt extensively within the financial intelligence sector, when FIC was established, I was one of the pioneers who did many of the work for financial crime and many of those things. If you look at the act, which borders on security intelligence and financial intelligence, there's something we call you ought to have known. So with our brother who is standing trial at the court, he ought to have known certain information that needed to be shared and what are the ramifications when you share with the wrong people and what type of information that somebody else might need to know. If you breach them, the consequences are strenuous and there are many of them on the line. I don't know which one will come against him, but I don't think the spreadsheet he shared the first time has anything to do with confidentiality or classification. It's just an operational document he put out there.
Oh, so you are not convinced that he's put out any document that should worry anybody?
No, when you look at the first spreadsheet, the descriptions on it do not even qualify to be confidential. They are just operational level or the lowest level of information or document management within any secret society or any secret service organization. One of the new ones, because of the threat of his lawyer, one of the new ones he may put out there, which we, those within the security intelligence environment, would not be surprised, but the general public will be surprised, is that he may put out there that he himself has taken decisions, or he has been influenced to take decisions, or his unit has taken decisions to spy on certain specific individuals in society, their phones, their social media handles, and some other things to create discomfort for them. The reason why we will not be surprised is that it is a known knowledge that Ghana, the US, and I think some other countries, there are 5 countries in the West, have launched onto this platform, Pegasus platform, developed by the Israelis, which spies on citizens of this nation. And the report is all over the place, and Ghana has predominantly featured. So we will not be surprised if he said he has been influenced to take a decision, or he himself has taken personal decisions and not collective decisions in the interest of the state, and that made him spy on certain individuals or create discomfort for certain individuals in this country. But the general public will say, why is he throwing out there? But we are aware some of the things they have done in the past and what that department can be. Number 2, if you remember, when MPP came to power, there is a deputy national security coordinator was sent to prison for 5 years, and he was released based on health grounds that the president pardoned him after he had served a number of years. What is the basic issue that took him to prison? It has to do with some purchases within the national security architecture. The government at the time, at the Akufo-Addo, reviewed the purchases, they audited the account, and they did reconciliation. Then they felt that he had some charges to answer at court. They took him to court, and the judge sentenced him 5 years. Some of those purchases have to do with this particular thing I told you, where certain platforms has belonged onto, or whatever charges might have preferred against him. So even within the national security structure and architecture, for the past 8 years, President Akufo-Addo has been in power. One of the senior most people has faced the rigors of the law and what politics can do, and he has been sentenced to prison. The point I'm making is that the fact that you work within the space doesn't exonerate you from some personal decisions or some discretionary powers you might have used that can create problems for you. And it's also buttressed the point that there are ramifications for saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing or doing things that can be challenged in court. So when his lawyer threatened a threat that they may throw something out there, no, we are guided by the oath we sign, and there's what we call the need to know and the need to share, and you ought to have known. So there are consequences. I think the best option I can advise him is when they have rebuttals to do, they should go to the court in front of the judge and do that. And that may rather save him. Because if you look at the first spreadsheet, it did not answer the various charges against him at the court of law. And that is where the issue is, and not in the public space.
Are you saying that even many years after you left the NIB, the oath you took still binds you?
Yeah, we respect our oath. Once a soldier, always a soldier. Those of us who work within the corporate environment, I did a job for a bank where my cousin or my big brother is a lawyer. They give you a secrecy oath, a document, agreement, and you sign. Some of the things you know because you have accessed their premises, you have a privileged information. You cannot divulge it or you cannot disclose it after 5 years, after 10 years. It's a common thing we do as we travel across the globe within the corporate environment. Even within the corporate environment, those things are there, and you can be sued if you divulge or you disclose whatever you see while consulting for a particular bank or a particular institution. And it's a basic thing we all apply ourselves to. How much more the Secret Service which is of the highest level, and we classify them as a secret society. You remember the case of Wikileaks, and you remember the case of Snowden. What were the charges that went against them, and how many years did they run as fugitives before they had some level of freedom now? The things they disclosed was borders on old people's time and was borders on people not living by expectation. So those who even facilitated giving them those informations have some level of discomfort because the system will have to come against it.
In fact, in this case, you're talking about a high-level head of a spy agency, because you're talking about the use of the Pegasus. Now, it means that they use that to monitor the activities of, I'm sure, many prominent Ghanaians.
Including you and I,
Okay.
Senna. Were you in this country when a lot of people complain that their Facebook accounts have been tampered with? Where is it likely to come from? With some of us who, the only crime we commit is that once in a while, say, no, we'll call you and you provide public education, you create awareness and offer alternative reasoning in terms of national security strategies and when it comes to national issues. Those were the crimes we committed. Senna doesn't pay me for educating the public, but yet some people thought otherwise. And the rate at which they came at us and the speed at which they came against us and our families and many of the things they did against us, we are not surprised if some of those things come into the general public. And I slang that word, but you said it properly, the Pegasus. So when they catch you, you said, no, they can't, not me, because I slanged that side, and I didn't want the general public to know.
I see. So what the threat his lawyer is making, if they go ahead and do that, there are consequences for it.
Definitely. But the good thing is that within the group or within the national security institutions across the group, national security interest operational issues have been demystified. So whatever they will throw out there, we can have a conversation online, and I'll tell you which ones are really the classified ones and which ones are confidential and which ones are just the operational. For instance, when he released the first spreadsheet, people were complaining about many of the things on the spreadsheet. But if we work within, like some of us have done for the past 28 years, these things are normal things, they are operational things, and you don't need to worry. But people feel because of the institutions he handles, and that is why he's sending some of these things. But it can be demystified, and it's not everything that threatens the stability of the state or the security of the state. I lead a team called Democracy and Governance Risks. One of the major risks against African countries, particularly within West Africa, is politics and actions of political actors. That is the number one threat against democracy and against the stability of the state. And not anything the BNI might have done, whether by individuals or in their collective responsibilities. No. They have their place and they have their influences and impact, but there are major levels of threats as you travel along the line. And all countries face all manner of threats, depending on your domain and your jurisdiction and which threats come against you, either as a general one or as a specific one. But the institution he handled, apart from spying on people and creating discomfort for people, he is not the director of BNI. And that is where the action is. That is where the action is. You are the director of BNI. You see, you are above the law. You are a dangerous human being, because you see, the seat of the BNI can be used for good and can be used for bad. And when we joined, these were some of the words we had. And that is why high levels of circumspection, objectivity, and discretion will always be stressed. And they will always admonish and employ people you work within or without not to break the rules. Because if you don't bend it and you break it, then the state is dead. Because they are the ones who hold the state in check. And so when we talk about the state, that is where he is. His organization is an auxiliary part of the whole architecture or the setup. And so I don't know what he has under his bed that he will throw it out there that will threaten the state. I think that rebate or using it as a hook against the Attorney General might create some level of discomfort for him. Because then I remember he worked under NPP and we are under NDC. If you play the usual NDC NPP policies, which will indicate that the current Attorney General must have reviewed and cross-checked and re-examine whatever he did there as part of the report that will go to national security. And so they know exactly why they are picking me on and why they are asking him to answer some of those charges. So even if you bring the current national security coordinator into the picture, the impact might be less as compared to many of the charges that the Attorney General would know. Because the Attorney General is the number one prosecutor in this country and is the number one law enforcement officer in this country, which presupposes that when it comes to prosecutions as a result of investigations done by the BNI or even at the National Security Secretariat, it will land on his desk. So he is somebody who has huge weight and has a lot of, resources around him and has a lot of information, including those ones he can package as a crime witness, evidence against a particular person they believe has charges to answer. So he would rather concentrate on the charges because those charges have nothing to do with the things he put out there. And that is what I think that he will need a mighty hand of God with the direction he's going in order to escape.
The mighty hand of God. Now, that's quite interesting. And let me conclude on this now, because there are those who suggest that what he's basically doing is blackmail. So because he's been spying on people, he said he might be directly threatening them that I have been spying on you. I can put out what I found if you do not stop. Do you also agree that this could be just an act of blackmail?
I didn't want to use that word. I call it the rebate or rebata, but that is exactly what it is. And we may not use blackmail, but we will say you threaten the state. And when you threaten the state and the state decides to come after you, you will need a mighty hand of God to continue momentum or to survive. And that is what he ought to have known, or his lawyers ought to have known. Because, Senna, guess it this way. He was in power when the NDC is in opposition. So if those instruments and those platforms they sign on to predominantly is used for spying on the opposition politicians, then who suffered the most? Is that not the NDC? So whatever you throw out there, it will rather go against the government you serve for, and it will be in your utmost interest to, tread cautiously. Other than that, whatever you throw out there, might even be making your case worse. But having said that, issues around national security interest operations, whether in the personal decision form you took or in the collective interest, they can be dismissified. And once we can dismissify it, we can always digest it to see this one is not relevant, these are the implications, and this is what we are supposed to do. And if you look at the structure the NDC government is running now, it's a linear one. And it's on the straight line, and those decisions made on the straight line makes life easier for everybody. Unlike their time when, Kandapa suffered a little bit of setbacks because some of these boys will not allow him to have a command and do what he's supposed to do as the head of the institution.
I see. Thank you. Thank you very much for that education.
You're welcome, Bernard. God bless.
He's a former NIB operative security and fraud consultant. Mr. Richard Kumado joining us on the line. In fact,